The conversation is already starting. So it is my pleasure to welcome, to moderate this session, Professor Hugues Bersini. He has been at the origin of FARI, directing us and showing the way. He will be moderating the session, introducing the speakers. So the floor is yours, Hugues.
Right. Thanks a lot, Carl, and congratulations for this fantastic organization and this numerous number of people. You know, it's kind of impressive. You know, normally I'm supposed to listen to jazz concert here, and to see all those people interested in AI for the public good is so impressive. You know, it's so amazing, so great. Carl, you've done a great job. So I'll moderate this session dedicated to assessing AI data and robotics in public service missions. Mainly what I'm going to do is to ensure that the different speakers will respect their 15-minute times. And then afterwards, we'll have a panel discussion where we might be able to exchange and debate about, I don't know how long should be the panel discussion, but I think we have a lunch at 1 o'clock. So I guess 1 o'clock is definitive time for stopping everything. So obviously, we heard two fantastic talks this morning showing that AI can obviously benefit a lot to society when it's done in a certain way, when it has a public good in mind. And I've been very impressed by some of the items that were discussed this morning by our two fantastic speakers. So one of them was the participatory aspect of AI, so to involve the citizen, to respect equity, transparency, all those buzzwords that we heard a lot about AI, but are very seldomly respected in the many AI applications. So this, to some extent, is the DNA of FARI. FARI was supposed to develop the AI solutions for the public goods at the Brussels scale. So we really try to convince public administration in Brussels to invest more in AI for the Brussels people. And it's not an easy job. It might sometimes even become a nightmare, but we're not discouraged. We keep trying. And I hope my partners in this discussion have a same kind of a dream, you know, making AI profitable to people living obviously over the planet, but I guess that it's easier at a local scale. So this is why FARI has been more dedicated to Brussels. But like our German friend was telling this morning, I think any solution that you can develop at a local scale like Brussels can easily extend to any place in the world. You know, the kind of problem we face in city like, you know, mobility, pollution, access to school, public health are exactly the same in all the places in the world. So I guess any technological solution, and even more if it's an open source solution that we succeed to develop at the level of the city, can easily be expanded to any other city. So, okay, so now I'm going to give the floor to my different colleagues. So we'll first have Maria Claudia Bodino. So the rules is you speak for 15 minutes. You try to respect your time. I'll be severe on that. And then afterwards, after the 4 talks, we might have a discussion among us. So, Maria Cristina from the European Commission, my Italian colleague, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So, I'm very happy to be here, and thanks a lot for this nice opportunity to speak and to introduce a project. My name is Maria Claudia, and today I would like to share with you this initiative from the Commission, specifically from the Digital Euro program that is called Big Data Test Infrastructure. The name is not very catchy, but the content, yes. So we know today there is a lot of hype around AI, and also the previous keynote was really, really inspiring. When we are working in the public sector, I think one of the most important things we need to be very aware of is about the data skills we have around people working in the public sector, and also the fact that the public sector information theoretically can play a big role, but most of the time, this big information is not really high quality, as just the colleague before was mentioning. Also, it's not easy to access. There are issues about interoperability. These different silos are difficult to open. And when it's about big data, we think mainly about new formats new quality and also availability of information. That's quite straightforward. In this very dense slide, I just try to summarize the main important policy pillars from the European Union in order to move forward with a public sector, a data-driven public sector. So there is the European data strategy, there are different actors, private, public, academia, but from the public sector perspective, it's very important for us to focus on some of them, and specifically on the Open Data Directive, where member states are they need to open specific data set, using open APIs. Also, they need to provide free access in order to have information that is reusable and interoperable. Then, beside the AI package, the AI Act, we know a lot about this. The other important new pillar is the Interoperable Act. So, all of these are new ways of trying to improve the quality of the data we are sharing from the public sector, in order to really create this data economy, exchanging information between government, private sector, and academia. That is not so easy, not at all. So this is where the infrastructure we are presenting today is let's say, available. So basically, this infrastructure, in a few words, is a data science playground that is offered for free to public administration all around Europe. And it doesn't matter if it's a small public tiny administration like a small municipality or a bigger one. The main the main important aspect that also was mentioned in the presentation is that we rely just on open source tools because of many reasons, but mainly for sustainability. And we are looking for public administration that are interested in developing some nice pilot or just even understanding how to use data tools and how to connect dots between different domains. And we are usually more than happy to have partnership with academia and also private sector. Why? Easy, because most of the time in the public sector, we don't have enough people with the right expertise when it's about playing with data. That's why sometimes I'm a bit skeptical about all this AI hype we have around, because most of the time, people even don't know how to open a CSV and how to connect different CSV together. So AI is not just LLM, it's a lot more. This infrastructure, it's just background information, is under the DEP program, specifically under the AI building blocks, together with cloud and the other data initiative and foundings. The main goal, again, is to support, sorry, there is a typo here, to support public administration in creating high-value data set. I don't know, just think about the business registry that now member states need to open, or also in all these work in progress around the creation of data spaces for the European data, let's say, economy. With this infrastructure, with BDTI, we concretely support public administration to access the quality of the data, but also to start piloting some idea that then they would like to move in production, and hopefully in one of these data spaces. Here you can see a very concrete set of information. If you are a bit familiar with the data world, you know that this is the usual data journey you need to follow when you're doing something with data. You start from collecting the information and processing them, analyzing, visualizing, and finally go to the decision makers, or maybe to the audience, citizen, academics, and present what you are doing. You can see that for each of these steps, we are trying to push for, I would say, open source tools that are very well known in the market, and all of them are easily accessible even outside the infrastructure. But the main advantage here is that you have everything ready in the cloud. You don't need to waste your time setting up all the different tools, and you can start really crunching data, try to connect the different data sets, and moving forward in order to create knowledge. These are just some screenshots from the platform. You can see this is an example we create with Dublin, the municipality of Dublin, about optimization of public lighting. So we were creating some basic machine learning model, collecting data from the weather stations and from different data sources, and we try to create some different scenarios where the municipality can understand how to save money, switching on and switching off lights, public lighting in the different areas of the city. How to apply the process is super easy, super straightforward. Once you are a bit familiar with infrastructure, we have an amazing website with a lot of resources. You just need to submit your request, and then in a few days we are going to set up a meeting with you to discuss your pilot request, and finally to give you the environment where you can start developing and implementing your idea. Again, it's about having this infrastructure for free. It's completely open source, and ideally we are going to open all the code behind this infrastructure in the GitLab repository from the Commission, that is code.europe.eu. Why? Because after this 6-month period, the idea is that you can push forward your development and you can replicate the environment that is going to be open source even in your infrastructure. And then you can experiment relying on the cloud behind, and you don't need to, to be worried about cost and consumptions. Just some material we usually have and we usually use with our colleagues is this canvas to define a little bit better what you want to face and what you want to develop in your use case, checking different important aspects like availability of data, interoperability of information, data processing needs, risk, and whatever. These are some inspiring pilots we are developing, and some of them are already, they already conclude. The first one, we published a paper, I think 1 month ago. It's about public services in Greece with a lot of transformation using linked open data. The idea was to create an access point, basically endpoint, where all the information about public services are available and reusable, but also very high quality data. Then we had the example, very interesting, with Norway and other public administration working more on the mobility area, try to analyze mobility data from citizens and try to assess how they can improve the services for their citizens. This product is for all member states, and one of the big barriers we always face is language. Because when you're speaking about data and technology in the public sector, unfortunately, public servants working in other member states, they are not very confident, and they are not very familiar, so we try to translate all the materials in their language. We have a newsletter, you can subscribe for free, of course, and this is probably the most interesting part. We are delivering a series of webinars, very tangible, very concrete, where we start from an open data set from municipalities like Madrid, Barcelona, and others. And we are developing together and coding together using, for example, Jupyter notebooks and many other tools, all the code necessary to solve these different use cases. There are many other events scheduled for the next weeks. Feel free to subscribe, and it's open not just to public administration, but also to students and citizens in general. These are our main contact points. Feel free to contact us, and we are more than happy also in this day, tomorrow, we are here and we can share more information with you. These are just links and resources, and that's all. Thanks a lot for your attention.
Thanks a lot, Maria Claudia. Thanks for respecting the time. It's kind of exciting. Didn't know about this BTI initiative. So we already have a huge amount of difficulty to share data at the Brussels level. So at the European level would be even an incredible dream. So let's see. We might discuss that during the panel discussion. So then we have our second speaker, Paul Duan. I know Paul for many years now. I was very fascinated by his bias impact company. I think was new 10 years ago. No, what was that? And he was really like this. Yeah, and he was that's right. And he was really interested in we had exactly the same feeling about exploiting AI and data technologies for making a city a better place to live. That was the case for Paris, if I remember well, but you did also some work in San Francisco. So I was so much impressed. He was so young at the time I met him. He's still very young, but yeah, and I'm very pleased to have him with us, and floor is yours, Paul.
Okay, thank you, Hugues. Hi, everyone. So we talked about the data side, and I want to talk a bit about the application side. Like, so concretely, how do we use data and AI to improve the lives of citizens, and in particular those who need it most? So specifically generative AI, because this is what all the fuzz is about these days, but this also applies to data and AI beyond Gen AI. So just a bit of context. So I founded Base Impact in 2014, which is a tech NGO whose mission is to empower people at scale. The idea being that we can do social work, we can do it by hand, but if we can use tech to give ourselves superpowers, we may as well use them to try to help as many people as we can. And that's the beauty of these technologies, is that they can scale. And then we'll go talk about it later, but I'll give you a little bit of a spoiler. The big question is, okay, it can scale, but does it scale, right? Like, how do we go beyond just pilots, proof of concepts? How do we create a real impact in the field? So this is a question that has been obsessing me for the past 10 years, and I think this is also how we connect with Hugues on that level. So over the past 10 years, we've worked in a variety of fields, from justice, employment, and healthcare. In total, we built solutions that impacted around 5 million plus beneficiaries. These days we're building a new product called Case AI, which builds upon everything that we learned from all these projects to empower social workers to be more effective and improve social services in general. So just a little bit of to set the topic here. Really the big question is, how do we ensure that AI benefits everyone, and in particular the most vulnerable? I have no doubts that we will know how to use AI in the commercial sector in ways to increase profits, but how do we make sure it also improves the community? And if you want to convince yourself of that, all you need to see is to walk down the streets of San Francisco, where I used to live. So I used to work as a data scientist in Silicon Valley. It's just jarring when you go there, and and it keeps increasing the inequality. You basically only have two types of people in San Francisco. You have tech millionaires and you have homeless people, and you have pretty much nothing in between. So the question, what do we do for that? Well, it turns out that across, so beyond San Francisco, beyond the anecdote, across the world, demand for social services is increasing. So if you run a survey around the whole of the OECD, and we ask people, do you think the government should be doing less, the same, or more? To improve the economic and social security of people. I mean, of course, a lot of people say more or even much more. The problem is that when you look at the budgets and social funding, you chart this graph, it tells the opposite story. How do we reconcile this discrepancy? The result is that 85% of social workers, so that's a British study, but it's also true across the OECD, 85% of social workers report signs of burnout. That's a huge number, and that's primarily due to increased workloads, with caseworkers often having to manage hundreds of beneficiaries. I just took a little bit of a sample from the internet, just a quick Google search, but the stories abound. It's not just a statistic, it has a real life impact for people in need. In every possible field you can think of. It can be suicide risk children who were refused places in the NHS. It can be in terms of protection de l'enfance, so the foster care system where social workers have about 100 children on average in France to manage in their portfolio, which is unsustainable. It can be 300,000 veterans who reportedly died waiting for the VA to process their file and the application for care. You have the same story in housing, the same story in employment. You get the idea. This discrepancy between the need for social services and the resources that we have impacts not just social workers, but also ultimately the citizens who need these services. And that's a lot of people. That's about 1 in 3 individuals at a given time, and the OECD benefits from the social safety net in some form or the other, and half of every children. That's so there's just a little excerpt of what counts in this definition of social safety net, which is not that broad. That's still a huge amount of people. But actually, if you expand the scope, I mean, that's pretty much everyone. If you think about things that could be public services but currently aren't, so for example, There's all these initiatives to support newborns, and especially in France, there was a huge push for helping parents in the first 1,000 days to answer all the questions and deal with this tricky part better. If you account for these type of services as well, I mean, that's pretty much everyone. Well, everyone who's here has gone through the first 1,000 days. So how do we not just go from a stage where we think about how do we deal with the public services we have right now? We're trying to not make them disappear, but how do we expand the scope? How do we use technology to also not just deal with the insufficiencies, but also create new things? Worldwide, that's 2.5 billion people who benefit from social safety net, according to the World Bank. Okay, so what do we do about that? And how can generative AI change things? Well, Gen AI really shines is specifically in tasks that it turns out are very prevalent in social service provision. So that means personalizing support, customizing content, automating processes that were very difficult to automate before. Specifically in the social sector where software and processes are not very well industrialized. So it's been traditionally difficult to automate tasks because it's so manual labor intensive, as opposed to, say, industries that are more mature with like modern technology stacks. In modern software, very often in social services, it's very much pen and paper and manual processes and arcane knowledge. Well, it turns out that these are things that have become automatable now that we have large language models that can process this unstructured data and information. It's also making recommendations. So all these tasks that are critical in social services. And actually that was from yesterday, Y Combinator, the famous tech incubator in Silicon Valley. Actually published a report about where they see the impact of generative AI by industry, and the top ranked was actually in public service provision. So it's a sign that things are changing. So let me, during for a second, I was talking about the problems. I was talking about the people who lack access to quality care. So let's have a more positive note. So what if every child had its own tutor? Well, it's possible. There's a few nonprofits working around the globe. There's one called ADU. I think it's a German-based nonprofit that has a coach that improved. So they deployed that in Kenya across hundreds of thousands of people. Early research shows that it improves ratings by 1 standard deviation in the education space. For those who know the space, I mean, that's huge. Nonprofit called quill.org helps 35 million people learn to write and to argue better using AI to review statements. So good examples of AI at scale. So what if every patient had a dedicated nurse? So same thing here. There's a few people working on this. Great colleagues at Jenker and Health that help provide medical information to 2 million plus Kenyan mothers. What if every refugee had a personal translator? So same thing here. Tarjimly, another great nonprofit that actually worked together in the past helps 250,000 refugees get translation services 3 times faster. We actually had a similar story in France with the Red Cross when there was the war in Ukraine that started. There was this huge influx of Ukrainian refugees, but not a lot of volunteers who knew how to speak Ukrainian. Similar story here. AI is one of the potential solutions to help address these shortages. And the list could go on and on and on. So basically, what if every person who is in need could have like a dedicated social worker, as probably should be. So what we want to create with AI is to help go towards a world where everyone can get access to the personalized care they need. So that's what so that's a little bit of an advertisement here, but that's what we're building at Base Impact with this new product, Case AI. The idea is to help public services and nonprofits support the beneficiaries at scale. So it's basically to build a generalized version of what we've seen just before. So we built this AI copilot for case management. So basically it equips caseworkers in France, and we're starting to build that in the US as well. And what it does is it helps caseworkers better support their beneficiaries by summarizing the case notes and the cases, and then suggesting actions over time. And also being able to proactively say, hey, maybe you should go talk to, you should go ping your beneficiary Hugues, because it's been 2 months that he was supposed to do this. Maybe this is the right time to check on how he's doing, and maybe you could even suggest him this new program that started, right? So all this information compiling that's very time consuming, and also all these workflows where social workers already struggle to keep up with demand just from just reacting to demand. How do we also help make them proactively reach out to really make sure that everyone is cared for? So that's the things that we're building. And we're working with diverse sectors already, ranging from child protection with e-Enfance, which is the French national hotline for bullying and harassment. So basically they have the same ratio. They have, at the given time, 5 staff trying to field calls for 200,000 children per year. Not a great ratio. We're also working with France Travail, so France's National Unemployment Service, to provide weekly action plans for job seekers who are part of the intensive coaching program. And we're, same thing here. Coaches don't necessarily have the time to personalize these care plans every week. But also in the medical sector, working with the Paris Hospital Region Network, so APHP, we're using AI to help guide patients who come out of surgery and very often have all this information to absorb when they're still kind of tired and sedated and stressed, and so they can come home with a dedicated AI hotline that can answer all these questions, and of course is connected to the nurse. So all that builds upon our experience at Base Impact building, not just AI, but tech for good in general. So in France, we built the national system for handling COVID contact tracing. There was not AI in there, but one thing that we learned there is like, how do we create things that are simple and effective? That's what we're trying to build here. The idea is that, of course, with AI, you can build all kinds of custom solutions, but in reality, what you need in order to have something scalable is to have something very, very simple. So the idea here is that as long as we have these 3 ingredients to customize the AI, we have the right methodology, we have the right service catalog, and all the case note history, then we are able to provide, to provide an AI that kind of replicates the workflow of caseworkers and suggests things. And with everything being packaged so that you don't have to worry about safety, about analytics, about all these things are very important, and privacy and data security as well. It's not on the slide, but how do we package it all so that it becomes accessible for small organizations, for public services who don't always have modern technology, and for caseworkers who are not always the most tech savvy. So I'm going to go quickly through that, but in France Travail, so we are rolling this out. We piloted that across 30,000 youth. Are rolling this out across 5 million plus beneficiaries next year. And the idea is that the ratio of work coach per claimant is 1 in 500. Again, you see the story, and through the initial feedback, we really see that AI can actually help work coaches cut down the time they take to create an action plan from 20 minutes to like 2 minutes, just reviewing instead of creating from scratch and compiling all the information. That gives them a lot more time to really deal with the human aspects of the care, which is what we all hope for, and feedback from ranging from people saying that it saves them hours per day to really helping increasing the human connection. So when we say that the AI risks dehumanizing care, I think it's the exact opposite. But the way that we can really unlock the potential in generative AI, and I'm going to really quickly here, but the big challenge is how do we try to scale these pilots? How do we avoid what we call death by 1,000 pilots? So be able to get the first proof of concept, to get maybe 30,000 euros below the threshold to really do a small experiment. Okay, that's fairly easy. But once it works, how do we make it general? How do you make it general? How do we roll it out across millions of people? We don't really have here the right framework for that yet, because we're not quite mature enough in terms of the doctrine for public innovation. I think, I'm sure we can talk about this in the panel more, but there's a lot of reasons for that: lack of investment, lack of also the right funding and procurement systems, institutional resistance, and on and on. There's of course real questions about biases here, but I know I'm over time. But what I do want to do is to end on a positive note, and not just the risks, is the potential. Is that generative AI is a leapfrog opportunity, because you can kind of skip through the systems. You can skip through the intermediary step of modernizing information systems in these legacy environments where it's very, very complicated to have all these transformation strategies that takes decades, that takes millions of euros. Well, maybe here with AI, you can think about the next step directly. You can think about what does the future of public services look like in a world where we have AI to really provide personalized care for everyone, and so kind of skip through that process and really build the public services of tomorrow. So our goal is to help the next 50 million beneficiaries by 2027, but that's for us, the main goal here is that how do we create systemic change and create also the conditions and the frameworks for that to happen. All right, thank you.
No, you're perfect. So thanks a lot, Paul. I guess some of the issues that you mentioned during your talk will be part of a panel, like the institutional resistance, and so I'll be happy to see how you face those issues. So now we go traveling through Europe, so we keep traveling, and then we had Italy, France, and now we have the Netherlands. And with our next speaker, I hope I'm pronouncing well, Elja Daae, is this right?
Daae.
Daae, oh, you see, I was sure I would miss it. So Elja Daae, from the Ministry of the Interior and Kingdom Relations of the Netherlands. The floor is yours. Happy to have you with us.
Hi, everyone. I have some things to say about Paul's death by 1,000 pilots, because this is something we are definitely familiar with in the Netherlands. My name is Elja, and I'm the AI policy lead, mostly focused on the use of AI in the public sector in the Netherlands, working from the ministry. And in the Netherlands public sector, AI is not new. We've been using AI for years and years in all kinds of applications, mostly narrow AI applications, for instance, drones and image recognition to be more efficient in finding invasive plant species, or keeping in check the maintenance of roads and bridges, or all kinds of things. However, of course, when generative AI became so big, the number of pilots has definitely exploded, but so has the number of opportunities we see. The challenge in this is that, like many other countries, we have an enormous number of organizations, and they are all in charge of their own IT infrastructures and AI systems. So over 1,600 organizations who are all or mostly using AI and other automation. So getting a handle on what's happening is quite a challenge. We do have an algorithm register. We're among some of the first in the world to have such a register for the public sector. And right now, well, this is Friday, and there's new things added every day, fortunately. And we have around 100 AI systems that are published in the register. About 25 have been indicated by the organizations publishing as high risk, as in high risk AI under the AI Act. However, all organizations are free to label as they want. We've also just had a report published by the Netherlands Court of Audit focusing on the central government, and they think they came out at about 433 AI systems. Of course, the question of definition, as I'm sure some of you are familiar with, is quite complicated. We've done other research just to get a handle on where is AI being used, how much AI is being used, and what is needed to improve public services, where can we use AI to improve our work, basically. The big issue we have, and I feel other countries have less issue with at the moment, is that we had what we now call the child benefit scandal, which came to light in 2019. And basically, it turned out that in trying to research fraudulent cases of child benefit application, our government used a system that was hugely biased and discriminatory, leading to thousands of families being asked to pay back their benefits and basically going into financial ruin. And this has been hugely impactful, not just obviously for those families, but in the trust the public has in the Netherlands when it comes to the government's use of AI and algorithmic systems. So even though, of course, we see opportunities and we are piloting like crazy, there is a lot of reserve, and you know, almost every week my department gets questions from Parliament, Senate, media, researchers, auditors, to explain what we're doing when it comes to AI and algorithms, which I've found is not always the case in other countries. This is just, sort of a public trauma we have. So what we've been doing is trying to find ways to increase transparency and, of course, safeguard human rights and public values when using AI systems and algorithms. So we published a impact assessment, human rights and algorithms in 21, which is basically a way to get a diverse panel of experts from your organization in a room and discuss a specific algorithm or AI system and go through it step by step to know what the impact will be on human rights. Of course, now in the AI Act, similar tools will be published, so we're excited to see that. We published a non-discrimination guide focused on the use of algorithms. Our algorithm register, we've now turned this non-discrimination guide when using algorithms and AI into an e-learning, and we're about to publish what we call the algorithm framework, which is basically a website where all the applicable laws and regulations when public sector bodies use algorithms and AI are put together, as well as instruments to help be compliant, which maybe sounds simple, I don't know, but it's quite a challenge. And this is what we're doing to make sure that we will not have a repeat of the scandal I mentioned. When we're looking at, I think I'm missing some important, it doesn't matter. So things we're doing, one of our focus points is transparency. Obviously, when the child benefit scandal came to light, transparency became a huge focus of the public sector, not just in the how do algorithms and AI systems work, are they explainable, but also just the fact that they're being used. You know, when you apply for child benefits, should the government tell you that they're using an algorithm that directly impacts their decision to allow you the allowance? And I think under our current administration, the focus on transparency will increase. Of course, we're working on how to avoid bias. One of the challenges is that there is not really consensus on what constitutes bias statistically. So this is something we've been working on with a broad group of professionals from the government and scientists. The framework I mentioned, we're working on increasing awareness, building community, organizing events. And one thing that you can't see on the sheet is that we're also working on scaling up AI systems that are successful. So the death by 1,000 pilots is familiar, and one of the main focus points for the current government, who just were installed, is going to be finding ways to scale up successful, responsible AI applications within the government, because obviously if something is useful for one municipality, it's bound to be useful for another municipality, and we have so many of them, and they don't all have resources to to dive into what things mean and how to do things. So that's going to be one of our, I think, main focus points, while continuing our work on avoiding bias in AI and algorithms and increasing transparency. Yeah, that's it.
Thanks, Elja, and sorry for mispronouncing your name. And so we have the last speaker, so we come back to Belgium, so even more locally to, if I'm right, to Woluwe-Saint-Pierre. And we have a political and administrative actor of Woluwe-Saint-Pierre telling about his experience, so my pleasure to welcome Alexandre Pirson.
Thank you. So, yeah, good morning, everyone. So my name is Alexandre Pirson. I'm a deputy mayor in Woluwe-Saint-Pierre, in charge of employment, urban planning, but of course, digital transformation and digital transition. And first, before doing politics, I've always been an entrepreneur. I've created some initiative in the energy and healthcare sector, also using AI. But when I became the youngest local councillor at the age of 19, it was really important for me to to have a bridge between the administration and the startup and entrepreneurial environment. And this is why I made this motto, centric entrepreneurship in politics. And I think we need to reconsider the way we do politics and the role of administration today. For example, in 2020, we faced a huge lack of electric charging station in my locality. And during a trip in London, I discovered that there were charging stations integrated into street lights. It was both innovative and practical, and I decided to bring this innovation back to Woluwe-Saint-Pierre. And I think it's a good example to show what public administration should do. First, identify a pain, a problem. Second, innovate. But of course, after, share it and collaborate. And I think we should do the same with AI in the future. So the challenge we're facing today in my locality, and I think in the public sector generally, that was a picture taken Friday, and that's all the documents I need to sign. So as you can see, it's not paperless yet, but I think it's really important to fill the huge gap there is today between the demands, and we show that on the graph that was shown precedently. There is a huge gap today between the demands of the citizen and the service and the resources we have. And especially since the COVID and the energy crisis, the locality, I think in Brussels, 13 out of 19 localities are virtually bankrupt. So we need to do more with less. And this is a constraint, of course. I think digitalization is the first answer, and we answer it with Woluwe-Saint-Pierre. So we have created a digital service desk. So this is an online platform where all citizens can obtain their documents. You can renew your parking permits from your sofa. Before it was, you had to take a day off to go to the locality, and now you can do it from your living room. So we are the first locality in Brussels that have launched a digital application, so where you can directly, of course, download the documents, but of course you receive notifications in real time. And it's crazy because we are the oldest locality in Brussels, one of the oldest in terms of population aging in Brussels, but the application was downloaded by 1,500 people in the first days we launched it. So it shows how helpful it is. We also were the first municipality to launch a chatbot and a factbot in Brussels, answering frequent citizen questions. But I think it's crucial as well to mention that our priority also remains in preserving the human connection. So technology should reduce repetitive tasks, but it cannot replace human interaction. And this is why besides this digital service desk, there is also a physical counter in Woluwe-Saint-Pierre with a staff ready to welcome you with a smile. So the challenge of digitalization, of course, is huge, especially in a locality like ours. So the digital divide is huge, and this is why we've launched an initiative named Connect 1150. So we've built a public digital space with 15 computers installed in the town hall, and our public digital space is open 5 days a week, offering help to all our citizens and providing some training on different subjects, including AI, and we will talk about it in a minute. And so I think it's a crucial answer to this problem. So the adoption in AI, we're coming to the topic. So in Woluwe-Saint-Pierre, I think it was in December 2022 that we first heard about ChatGPT, and in my locality it was a disaster. Everyone was full of doubts, of fears, and it was really important for us to come back and to turn those eyes into opportunities. So we organized 6 months after, in May 2023, we organized a huge conference to demystify AI, and it was attended by 300 people. And it was important for me to accompany this conference with a concrete political action. And this was to become the first locality in Belgium to offer ChatGPT training to my citizens. And it's what we did. In September 2003, we started those trainings, and 1 year after, we have trained more than 200 citizens to ChatGPT, and mostly old people and senior people. So I'm really proud of that. And in those days, I remembered what I told at the conference. I think the genie is out of the lamp, and people have a lot of doubts and fear, but the lamp is the artificial intelligence, and the genie is humanity. And I think it's important to understand that with AI, I think AI is brilliant, but it's nothing without a human input, and it will change also the way we do education in our public schools. I think our teachers will become more companion to help you asking good questions, and I think it's a better solution than banning AI in schools. So another examples, a concrete example is urban planning. So as you know, in Brussels it's even worse, I think, but it's between 6 months and 1 year to have your urban permits. So it takes time, and that was a good case to use first digitalization. So now you can do all the permits process online, also from your sofa. And secondly, the idea now is to introduce artificial intelligence, and of course it's not to replace, the idea is not to replace agents, but of course to help them in the decision making and the analysis of the process. So the challenge in AI are huge. The first one, of course, is the legislation and ethics. So it's really important to build this frame of transparency and confidentiality. And after, of course, there is this reduction of digital divides that I mentioned, specifically for seniors and vulnerable population. And the last one, of course, is to maintain this human connection, which is crucial. And what's the vision of the future? So I'm dreaming of a world where we can build this administration 3.0, where we can rethink each of our departments and to see how AI can simplify our administration task. We need to ensure education and inclusion. And finally, it's really important when you innovate to collaborate. There is a group at the Brussels level that's already organized on IT matters, but I think we need to go at the national scale and even at the European scale. And so administration like Woluwe-Saint-Pierre don't work in silo. So together, guys, let's build this administration 3.0, and thank you for your attention.
So thanks, Alexandre, and first of all, thanks to all speakers for respecting their time. That was great. So I don't exactly know how long we can. So 15 minutes? Okay. So we have a 15 minutes panel discussion. So I'll take the, I'll try to take a lot from your different talks. And the first thing I'd like to ask to all of you, Alexandre, you're going to stay, or because you were telling me that you had to leave? 15 minutes you can stay? Okay, great. So the first thing I'd like to ask you, on account of everything I've heard, is obviously, Alexandre, last talk, what you presented on your commune, Woluwe-Saint-Pierre, can easily be done in any commune and even in any country, so even at the European level or even at the international level. So the first thing I'd like to say, because we have also a European representative, is what do you think about the possible? How would you see the mutualization of all those experience, how to scale up? You were speaking about scaling up. How can we do? Perhaps we have, you present technology that you'd like to be more diffused in all different countries in Europe. So how could we do that in order to help mutualize and scaling up?
So I think, do you hear me? Yes, yeah. Great. So for example, in our platform, one of the main goals is to support the data literacy, that it's something where member states and public administration need to invest, because first of all, we need to speak the same language, no? So after that, the other enabler, in our opinion, is to identify common use cases. For example, in the context of urban mobility and urban data analytics, most of the municipalities are facing similar issue, like how can we improve mobility, how we can provide social services for our citizens. So there are high-value data sets that are always very common. So in this let's say scenario, we can try to foster synergies between different municipalities, and this is already happening. We have different use cases, for example, from Germany, from Bochum, from Finland, and from other member states, where they are using kind of similar data set. So try to at least achieve a good level of interoperability. So when we have the same information, and so they can also try to replicate the same implementation, no? At least the same approach.
Wonderful. Everyone would like to intervene on that point, please.
I think it would be amazing to join forces and to create a group together with different level of decision. In Belgium we have 3, so we're used to that.
Out in Belgium, yeah.
But I think it's crucial, and maybe why not create an AI so we can ask questions and on how to innovate, come with some issue we encounter, and have solutions. So I think those 2 options would be really welcome for localities like ours.
But when you say that Finland and Germany was using they're using your technology, the data platform that you were mentioning?
They're using this platform that, as I mentioned, is a set of open source tools.
Yeah.
So the other, I forgot to mention that the other very important enabler is to publish your code in open source. At least, you can fork the repository, you can start building on top of what the others already developed, and they are using the same infrastructure, yes, but at the end, it's not the infrastructure that it's really the most important part, but it's what you are developing, the code you are releasing in open source, and also how this can be reused and readopted from other municipalities of similar use cases.
I was just wondering, is this the European technology? Because this is the cloud. You're using the cloud. Is it the European cloud or is it Microsoft?
No, the cloud behind is not open because we are still not there. But all the tools we are using, they are all open source. Yes.
Right. Okay. I had if you want to say anything, yeah. I had another point, because two other points that I'd like to exchange with you. The first one was and you mentioned, Paul, the difficulty to interact with, to collide with public administration. We had this, FARI is one of the challenges, try to, implement solution in Brussels for job, as you mentioned, in job, mobility, etc. But we realized that we can't avoid to interact with public administration, because they have power, they have tools, they have people interaction possibilities, so we need to deal with them. Often we meet a lot of difficulties, like a certain kind of conservatism, because we're not really open to change. We're very reluctant, very cautious, and sometimes, and hard to say, but some lack of competence, because the best computer scientists, they're not always working on public administration. So there's a lot of difficulty that we need to face. I met myself. I met a lot of those difficulties. How, what is your experience in dealing with public administration that you could exchange and share with us?
I wish I had the answer. Well, I think there's a few things. I mean, a few factors that can be addressed. One is very often when we go work with administrations, one issue that we have is that the innovation team is different from the IT team, or even the le métier, like the operational team. And so these are like three silos that don't really talk to each other, and maybe you convince the innovation team to do this, but when you actually want to scale it up, they just go to their IT department and say, I don't know, it's not in the roadmap, it's not financed. Anyway, they don't really see the need, because they don't have the vision of the operational team on the ground, so being able to have this innovation team be more integrated, I mean, it's true for large corporations, also it's true for public services, but it's not something that's done very, I think, done very well yet in the countries and cities I've seen. So that's one topic. The other one is funding. The big question is, how do you do procurement, and how do you buy these innovations? And actually, very often, I don't know how it is in Belgium, but in France, for example, sometimes it's crazy, because it's a lot easier for the administration to pay 5 million euros to Capgemini for a project that's not going to work. I'm sorry if there's anyone from Cap in the room, or than to say, I'm going to buy a solution for a startup. It costs maybe 200,000, or I'm going to even start a team myself, just because it's easier to leverage the large contract cadre, like the overall contracts that are already in place with consultancies. How do we change that? I don't know. We do need to change procurement rules. There's been a lot of experimentations with innovative funding systems, like social impact bonds, where you would pay based on impact. But by and large, it's not something that's done very well yet, and that we really need to change. So in the meantime, and that's I think a contributing factor to this death by 1,000 pilots I was mentioning. By and large, you'll do like either small contracts or innovation grants, or you go through the subsidy route, because that's where you still have some flexibility, but that really limits the scale and scope of what you can build.
I think it's really a change in cultures and mentalities. I remember when I arrived as deputy mayor, I came back. I changed because you have old paintings in the localities, and I took one off, and I put a panel where you can work in agile, and people were like, "What are you doing? Like crazy?" And the second thing is that I brought young students doing hackathons, and so bring back innovations. And I remember there were so much fears about change, and the administration was not really ready to this change. So I think I don't have this solution, but you need to convince them that it will help them in the long term, with small examples. As I shown with the parking permits, is concrete, and they see that no, is not to replace them, is so they can have more time to have a human contact, and this works. So I think it's coming with concrete actions that have worked. Explain it. Otherwise, the fear is huge.
Yeah, you want to add something?
Yes, I think, first of all, I think the narrative should be on point. So, for instance, thinking about a business case for public government often doesn't amount to cost saving, although it can in your example, but it also amounts to being better at your tasks, making sure that productivity is high, making sure the pressure on the workforce, is diminished. So it's really important to get the narrative, sort of the business case, right? And what we found, we started a project piloting 3 AI applications that we're trying to scale up within the Netherlands. And we're slowly coming to realize that a platform, like a platform where, first of all, you can see use cases so that you know about them, because of course not everyone is aware of what's possible, and they may not know there is a solution for their problem that someone else already put in place, which also applies to what you're doing. And this platform is one thing, but you definitely also need like a centralized group of experts. Like you said, not everyone has resources, not everyone has these AI experts, obviously, because some organizations are just really small. Although I do think the best people should work for the government.
Yeah, we agree on that.
Obviously.
Rise the salary.
There are very smart people working in the public sector, thankfully, but they can't be everywhere. So more and more I'm seeing that we need a platform that has all the use cases and the specifications, but also a centralized sort of center of expertise, people you can call that can help you, because we're now trying to copy certain systems from one municipality to the other, and it turns out that it's just really complicated because people are different, democracy is different, every geography is different, but having people who've done this before would really help. Yeah.
Maria, you want to add something? Or?
No, also based on my previous experience when I was working for the digital transformation team in Italy, it was, COVID time, so we had to produce something quickly, in order to support the lockdown in the country. And what I realized together with my team is that sometimes when you are working in the public sector and you want to implement solution alone, it's going to be very risky. So what I strongly recommend is to always try to have a multidisciplinary team where you have people from the private sector that maybe are more knowledgeable about, let's say, technological developments, and you from the public sector, where you have clear in mind which are the priority in terms of policy priorities, also domain expertise, because time to time, if you just give the development to a private company, and they don't have in mind that our drive is public good, is not at all profit, it's going to be very risky. So what I can really share from my experience is to foster a multidisciplinary team where you have people with different backgrounds and also different drivers and let's say capabilities.
Thanks. I've been told by the organizers that we have possibility to have a public interact. So if any of you like to raise, I've seen hands raising up. So.
Thank you. Very interesting talks. I have a question for Alexander and for others. What we see, the appetite for public sector to do AI and beat the curve is quite good, but then there's a thing that they would like to see at least a solution that has been done. They want to replicate that. So it's not actually an innovation. So do you think in the future there would be this strong drive for innovation rather than replication? It's not bad of the replication, but rather to have an innovation in that DNA of public sector. I think it's important because data-wise, they have a lot of data. So, thank you.
I hope, but I'm not sure about that. You really need to have more bridges between the private and the public sector, and as you said, people coming from the private sector to the public sector that can drive innovation from inside. Otherwise, I think it's going to be more replication because, of course, it's in the DNA. They're more risk averse and they have a lot of work. The budget constraints are huge, as I explained. So I think they deliver what they have to deliver, and they don't have time to innovate. So it's the change can come if we make bridges. As I am, I'm coming from the private sector. I've worked in the public sector, and know it's important for me not to stay too long in the public sector, to go back in the private and come back. And I think it's also a change in mentality, but this is how we will create innovation.
Yeah, me to add on that, and I think also what you were just saying before, you need to increase also to have teams that also come from private sector, and specifically I'm thinking of social entrepreneurs who do a lot of innovation in the social space, but also that interacts a lot with the public services, and very often we see them as completely separate, and there's no pathway from one to the other. I did a bit of work with Actiris here in Brussels. They work, for example, with great nonprofits like Duo for a Job, who kind of innovated the whole mentorship program. They have great results, but it's still you still have this like wall between, okay, these are like, you know, cute nonprofits doing work, and they have this innovative idea, and then you have the public service, and maybe they can do some kind of partnership, but you don't really have a pathway for how do we take these people and you turn that into something more general, or turn that into public policy. So you need to create these connections, and what I see is that otherwise you risk having digital transformation only be like a very non-creative thing. You know, in public services, for example, the risk is that when you talk digitalization, you are literally just taking the paper forms and you're translating them into digital forms. You're not like stopping and thinking, okay, is there a better way to do things, right? You're just like transforming it from one medium to the next. And the risk with AI is kind of the same. So we think about what already exists, and we think, okay, maybe we will add a chatbot on top of that. I mean, nothing wrong with chatbots, but when you want to really think about innovation, you also need to think more disruption. Like, you know, is there like a totally different way of doing things? And that often has to come from the outside because there's a lot of risk involved. So you need people who are okay with risk, and maybe it's better to incubate it elsewhere. So when it fails, it doesn't create a scandal like like in your slide that then, you know, cools down everyone's appetite for innovation, which is, you know, a bit sad. So how do you deal with this risk? Maybe you do it a bit from the outside. You need to have the funding pathways to fund it as well, and maybe the third element. And that's something that I think is very important in having more of the citizen-led innovation. It's what I call the dog fooding problem. The best people to innovate in a solution are usually the ones who experience the solution. You know, the startups, the best startups are people who solve the problem for themselves, and it's people who had a lot of trouble dealing with elderly care for their parents, and so they created an alternative solution. So usually these tend to be the best people to think about solutions rather than, and I'm not saying this is all we have in government, but there's often a disconnect between like the people in charge of the administration and the users of the system. So that's another ingredient where you really need to have teams are made up differently.
You raise a very important point. You want to add?
Yes, because I come from the private sector. I've only been working for the government for the past year and a half, and I've just been absolutely blown away by the number of innovations and the vast amount of people innovating, in my case with AI. The reason that we are now focused on scaling up is because their problem is they come up with really good solutions, you know, focused on the practice they have every day and the citizens they encounter, but actually getting the funding to establish a product, let alone having other organizations use it, that's the problem. There's innovators literally everywhere within the public sector, but having them you know, getting the okay and getting the funding and then scaling up, that seems to be a larger problem from what I experience anyway.
Can we take, Carl, can we take another question? Yeah, please.
A small question for Paul Duan. You talk about in your presentation AI Copilot. Is it related to Microsoft OpenAI? And if not, do you use open source tool? Less expensive than Gemini and other kind? Thank you.
No, it's not related. It's just the industry likes copilots because it's less scary than AI agents or automation. So you're still in the driver's seat. So there's actually a lot of tools named copilot. I think down the road, it's less scary than saying we will have artificial general intelligence or anything. The main idea is that you're here to improve the productivity and the efficiency of the human and not replace them. So I think it's been a common theme. And we do use open source models. It evolves all the time. One key reason is data privacy. Of course, beyond the openness of it, but if you work with sensitive data, like in the social space, it's better if you can host it on your own dedicated infrastructure. Maybe you can also fine-tune them to really make sure that they're also safe. We tend to prefer like open source models.
Thanks. I have been told by the organizer that we need to stop now, I guess, for lunch. So would like to thanks again the 4 speakers and for this panel. Carl, do you want to add something? Or yeah.
Thank you also, Hugues. You're welcome now to have lunch. And also, there is an art room. There is a room where we have and the Test and Experience Center team of FARI that has demonstration of AI data and robotics, of projects that we did. And there is also, right outside of Flagey, a little experience by Gluon, also in the context of this event. So it is going to be quite fun. So you're most welcome to also go see the exhibitors. Thank you very much.